Like every other CPA in Canada, I took the obligatory statistics course at college. And, like most of us, I never used it at work. At least until I began researching a proposed new micro-learning service for the Small Business Analysts Society of Canada. I needed to know where CPAs worked, what they earned, which businesses used their services, and what services they used.
It was 2019 when I first looked at the infographic on CPA BC's website describing the earning potential of CPAs in British Columbia. At the time, the median salary claimed was $100,000. A year later, the infographic showed $108,000. Note that the current infographic shows a breakdown of median incomes by industry. Interestingly, they exclude public practice from the professional services category. But 40% of BC CPAs work in public practice. That's more than any of the categories listed on the infographic. So why exclude that statistic?
I first looked at this infographic on CPA BC's website in 2019. At the time it showed the median income as $100,000. In early 2021 that number had increased to $108,000. Now, in September of 2022 the infographic seems to be missing, but the median salary claimed is now $116,000. Earlier in 2022 I ran a comparison of CPA BC's numbers with those reported on Work BC and the Canada Job Bank. At the time the CPA BC infographic showed a median income of $108,000. That was an $8,000 increase from a year earlier. However, the government data was showing a $2,500 decline for the same period.
CPA salaries and more Canadian accounting news. The Canadian Accountant, August 26, 2022. How much money does a CPA make in Canada? Indeed, the global job listings platform says it has come up with an answer: $65,108. That's the national average, and the salary you earn can typically depend on how much experience you've gained in your role, as the website rightfully states. Still, it's not exactly a ringing advertisement for the profession, which is why the associations tend to focus their ad campaigns on high-profile, highly successful accountants. When we broke down big firm revenue by employee, the average was about $172,000. According to the Canada Job Bank data, this represents about 2.5 times the median salary for financial auditors and accountants.
Profitability in large firms depends on something we call the leverage model, which doesn't work for small firms. It also depends on a steady stream of bright, ambitious people to accept median incomes of about $60,000 to $65,000 per year. To attract these candidates into the profession, our regulatory bodies publish median income estimates for CPAs that are overstated by 60 to 80%.
CPA BC claims that median income for CPAs is $116,000. That clearly does not make sense in public practice. It is impossible to know how the numbers could be so different. One potential clue is that they excluded public practice from the professional services category. But at least 48% of BC CPAs work in professional services, and most of those are in public accounting.
Was there a selection bias in terms of the people asked to participate in the study? In 2019, only 3,739 CPAs from BC participated. Were these the same people asked to participate in the subsequent study? Is this why the CPA BC results seem to be overstated by almost 90%?
Whenever I take professional development courses put on by CPA BC or CPA Canada, I'm led to believe that CPAs are very prevalent in industry. And that public practitioners only make up about 25% of members. But that doesn't align with what I'm seeing in the workplace. Given my experience with CPA Canada studies of median incomes, I decided to conduct my own analysis using a combination of government statistical data and various industry studies. The first thing I found was that, based on Canada Job Bank data and CPA membership numbers across Canada, the largest single group of CPAs worked in public practice.
In this slide, I took data provided by Statistics Canada, but I had to interpolate a little. I used BC Stats aggregations for the number of employees by firm. In particular, I used BC Stats' more detailed breakdowns of businesses with between 1 and 49 employees. Essentially, I distributed the larger number of categories developed in BC, assuming that the distribution between these categories should remain relatively constant across Canada.
Next, we go back to the WASP barcode study and try to align what businesses in that study reported to see if it makes sense in a Canadian context.
Now that we've determined how many CPAs worked in industry, we're able to align the number of CPAs with the number of businesses. If we assume that the distribution of full-time American CPAs by size of company is consistent, we can calculate the approximate number of CPAs working for our largest companies. In 2010, Statistics Canada released a study of paperwork costs faced by Canadian businesses. As a part of our practical statistics workshop, we took a deep dive into the work done on behalf of businesses of all sizes in the accounting services industry. What we found was that businesses of all sizes outsourced their income tax filing and representation services. In the case of the 78% of CPA firms with only 1 or 2 practitioners, that was virtually all that they did.
More than 99% of CPA firms in 2020 were very small, averaging less than $300,000 in revenue. The remaining 100 or so billed over $14 billion. It's like they exist in a different universe. Understandably, the largest firms exert more influence. However, they serve different markets and have much different business models.
So, while less than half of our largest businesses have full-time CPAs on staff, in any position, fully 75% use CPAs externally to file taxes on their behalf. While CPA Canada exhorts prospective CPAs to earn their designation, become recognized leaders, and exert global influence, that's just marketing speak. The reality is that we are recognized as tax experts.